Welcome, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. So a very warm welcome to the first regional training on measuring SDG16 in Africa. We are very happy and pleased to welcome such a large audience from across the globe. And as we are such a big group of people, I'm going to start off with some housekeeping rules. Number one, please keep your microphone muted and your camera switched off at all times during the session, except during the Q&A at the very end. Number two, please use the chat to ask any questions that you may have, and we will try and respond during the session via chat. And if not, then during the Q&A session at the end. Number three, polling questions that we will use throughout the session will be anonymous, and no names are recorded to us or to anyone. So again, they're completely anonymous. And finally, in case we do lose internet connection and the network breaks down, then please just reconnect to the meeting using the link provided to you in the email. And in case it's not possible to reconnect, don't worry, we are recording the session and we will provide you with a recording afterwards. So we have an exciting training program for you, and without further ado, I'm now going to pass the floor to our moderator, Ms. Salome Flores, who is the Director of the Center of Excellence in Mexico. Salome, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sarika. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning for those on another side of the world. Welcome to this first regional meeting measuring SDG16 in Africa. I'm delighted to moderate this webinar, which we will start right away with the opening remarks from three very distinguished speakers. So it's my pleasure to welcome Ms. Angela May, Chief of the Research and Trend Analysis Branch at UNODC in Vienna. Welcome, Angela. We also have Aparna Baniat, Senior Research and Policy Advisor on SDG16 from the UNDP Oslo Governance Center. Welcome, Aparna. And we also have Mr. Joseph Ilboudo, Chief of the Statistical Development, Data Innovation and Outreach Section in the African Center for Statistics at UNECA. So I would like to give the floor to Ms. May. Please, Angela, welcome to this webinar.
Thank you, Salome, and thank you to everyone to join us. And good afternoon here from Vienna, but good morning or good evening, wherever you are around there. I just wanted to acknowledge the large group that we have for this webinar. 220 participants registered for this webinar, representing 53 countries and 36 from Africa. And it's also good not only to see the number and the large number of participants, but also the diversification of these participants. It's really great to see that there is such a mix of participation from national statistical offices, Ministry of Interior, and also Ministry of Justice, and also our colleagues in UN country teams. So let me first also acknowledge and thank the partners that we have today on this webinar, and particularly UNDP in all its forms, in the Governance Center in Oslo, but also in the regional and country offices in Africa and in other regions. And particularly a warm welcome also to Salome and what she represented, the Center of Excellence that we in UNODC have established almost a decade ago with the National Statistical Office of INEGI. And I want to acknowledge in particularly because after 10 years of success, and we have seen how the center really help countries in the region to improve on measuring issues relating to Goal 16. I want to mention because this is the dream that we have to establish such a center also for Africa. But I also wanted to acknowledge our partner in the Economic Commission for Africa, because we really believe that we can improve crime and criminal justice statistics only when we work through mainstream statistics. And so our colleagues in the statistics division in ECA really are crucial in helping us to really improve the backbones of crime statistics. But also for the colleagues in the African Union and the prior group on governance statistics that we have been so thoughtful support with our efforts. So from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC perspective, I just want to tell you that for us, measuring Goal 16 has been and continue to be one of our priority in our statistical program. We are the custodian of several indicators in measuring the progress of SDG16. And this is due to a long history that we have in working with many of you and the countries in collecting, processing, and disseminated crime and criminal justice statistics. Indicators relating to SDG on crime, on violence, of access to justice, on corruption, on illicit traffic of firearms, illicit financial flows, trafficking of human beings, and organized crime are all very strong in the agenda of our statistical program. And we have developed a series of methodological tools to help you, country, and all of the countries to measure this sometimes very difficult to measure issues. So we have made some progress, and we see that since the starting of in 2015 of SDG, I think we see progress, but 2030 is still ahead of us. And so we see the big challenge that we have in front of us in terms of technology, institution, and modus operandi. So I really hope that this webinar would help each of you to just get a few ideas on few things or large things that can be improved in your country or in your office in terms of crime statistics. And with all how much we are experiencing the challenges that the pandemic has brought to us, let's also recognize the positive issues that a webinar like this probably would not have been possible or would not have been conceived a year ago. So let's together today really take advantage of this opportunity and do a little bit, each of us, to try to improve the measurement of Goal 16. Thank you, and best wishes for the seminar.
Thank you, Angela, for these very inspiring words. Now I would like to give the floors to Ms. Aparna Baniat. Please, Aparna, welcome.
Thanks, Salome, and good afternoon, everyone. It really is a great pleasure to be here with you all today to host this webinar series with our colleagues at UNODC. As Angela has already mentioned, it's really incredible to see that so many people have registered to join us for this webinar series from across the continent. And we think that it's really a testament to the importance, interest, and relevance of Goal 16 in the region. Achieving peaceful, just, and inclusive societies is not only a goal in itself, but is really necessary to drive the whole of the Sustainable Development Agenda. And we see this as central both to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, but also Agenda 2063 for the Africa we want. So for the first time in 30 years, as Angela referred to as well, we are seeing a decline in human development and deepening of inequalities globally. COVID-19 is disproportionately affecting different population groups and is undermining progress in achieving sustainable development. In the region, for the first time in 10 years, we just heard that the Mo Ibrahim Index has captured a decline in its overall governance score. We are also seeing that how the brittleness of the social contract can be illustrated in different countries through deep structural inequalities. And we see a rise in social movements and people rightly demanding more inclusive, effective, and accountable governance. But to fully understand the impact and to measure progress or reversals in areas such as violence, corruption, and access to justice, we need to have a better understanding of the reality people are facing on the ground. We need data that is timely, pertinent, and most importantly, accurate. The Africa region has been a leader in the area of governance statistics. The Praia Group on Governance Statistics, who we will hear from later today, is the first city group led by an African country, thanks to the collective effort of many of the national statistics offices present in this workshop today. And the complementarity of Agenda 2063 and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development highlights how the priorities in the region have also influenced global frameworks. But we also need to recognize that there is a need for further investment in statistics and in national statistics systems in the region. despite increasing budgetary constraints, we cannot ignore the need for investing in better statistics, which can help, for example, to ensure that policy responses to COVID-19 pandemic are inclusive, that they are human rights-based, or to better illustrate the gaps that need to be addressed to rebuild trust and strengthen the social contract. This is what I understand it to also be at the core of this year's Africa Statistics Day theme, modernizing national statistical systems to provide data and statistics to support sustainable peace and development in Africa. So over the course of this webinar series, I hope that you'll be able to delve deeper to better understand the indicators for Goal 16 and the SDG framework, and also hear about the different tools available to support you in strengthening data collection, analysis, and reporting in your industry. On our side, we look forward to your questions, contributions, and suggestions that will help further improve our support. But this is just the start, and UNDP with our colleagues at UNODC remain committed to working with you to develop and strengthen statistical production and enhance partnerships with different data producers and users to better measure progress towards peace, justice, and inclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aparna. Now we give the floor to Mr. Joseph Bilbaudo from UNECA. Welcome, Joseph.
Thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, as we are everywhere. So I would like, first of all, to convey to you the greetings of Mr. Oliver Shingania, the director of the African Center for Statistics, who requested me to stand for him. And I would also like, in the beginning, to mention that, yes, Africa just celebrated the African Statistics Day yesterday, as mentioned by Aparna, modernizing national statistical systems to provide data and statistics to support sustainable peace and development. And we align this with the current theme of the African Union, silencing the guns, creating a conducive condition for Africa development. But as you can see, we have been challenged, but these are timely thematics. So let me first of all mention to you how we see the progress on SDG16 in Africa with the set of evidence that we have. We can mention that Africa has regressed in on Goal 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And this is a draw. This is drawn by the increased numbers of victims of human trafficking, bribery, and corruption, and etc. So all things that the continent need to tackle. And when we look at the current space, when we look at internally the goals, we can see that really there are some strong regression in some of them. And when we look at our sub-regions, we have also a big concern when you disaggregated the indicators by sub-region. You can see that we are still challenged everywhere in Africa by the deterioration of all indicators at this level. And of course, something needs to be done. I remember so far with the interagency and expert group meeting that just concluded that we raised the alarm that we have a certain numbers of missing data, and Goal 16 is one of them, where we have a lot that are missing in the continent. Of course, we understand that it is not only Africa's challenge, it is everywhere, but we are drawing the attention to ourselves, and we are happy that something is happening to help increasing the data availability. And of course, I would like to mention that at the African Union level, with the strategy for the harmonization of statistics in Africa, we have a specialized technical working group on governance, peace, and security that met sometime back in Tunis in 2019, where conditions have been discussed on how the group can move forward. And we are happy that what is happening now will help the group to further strengthen the capacity of member states in generating this data. We recognize the contribution of the prior group, and we are proud of the prior group of bringing on the table methodological capacity building perspectives. We would like to really salute what is going on and say that at Africa level, we stand together with African Union Commission and with also the African Development Bank and other Pan-African institutions to support this initiative of statistical capacity building on SDG16. Your collaboration and your contribution everywhere will help us to really improve the measurement of indicators within SDG16. We remember that we have just concluded also the illicit financial flows matters, where awareness was raised on the capacity of countries to measure it. And we are happy that many African countries are undertaking now some pilot studies and everything that will help. And happy to mention also that Tunisia is the chair of the Specialized Technical Working Group, and vice chairs are Cameroon, Malawi, Senegal, and Madagascar is a rapporteur, meaning that we have a set of countries that are committed to this perspective of helping on SDG 16. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Joseph, for these very interesting works and also to understand what the context in Africa is regarding crime statistics. Before we end this item in the agenda, I would like to ask you and Aparna and also Enrico and Sarika to please turn on your cameras so we can take a photo of this first item in the agenda on the opening remarks. Yeah, I think I can see you now. Sarika, if you can please show your slide so we can also have that in the center and we can use this photo in social media. Great, I think that looks great. Okay, thank you very much, Aparna. Thank you very much, Joseph. With this, we finish this item in the agenda, and I would like to give the floor to Roberto Murguia from the Center of Excellence in Mexico to run a survey with all of you. Welcome, Roberto.
Thank you very much, and hello to everyone. My name is Roberto, and I will be guiding you through our polling activity. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see our first question. It'll pop up in just a minute. Just to remind you, everyone, that our questions will be timed, so please submit your response as soon as possible. And remember, no one, not even the organizers, nor me, nor anyone will see your individual responses nor your names. So don't be shy, don't worry, we won't be evaluating you. It's just a matter of seeing where we're standing and to introduce some of the topics. So our first question is, Goal 16 of the Sustainable Development Goals is dedicated to the promotion of peace, justice, and effective institutions at all levels. How many targets do we have to reach to meet this goal? And how many indicators are there to measure our progress? Option A, 10 targets and 10 indicators. Option B, 12 targets and 24 indicators. Option C, 25 targets and 30 indicators. And option D, 30 targets and 76 indicators. Please select just one response and click the submit button. We have about a minute to respond, so please, everyone, let's see how many targets and how many indicators are there in Goal 16. And the time's up. All right. Now let's see how many of you responded and what were your replies. In a second, we'll see the results. All right, here we are. Most of you responded that we have 12 targets and 24 indicators, and that is correct. We have an overall number of 12 targets, and for each of them we have several indicators. On some, we have 24 for SDG16. So that is a basic notion that we'll be discussing throughout the webinar today. Thank you very much, and I'll join you for the next polling question.
Thank you, Roberto. Now we will move on with the next item in the agenda, which is a presentation by Enrico Bisogno. He's the Chief of the Data Development and Dissemination Section in UNODC in Vienna. Welcome, Enrico. Before you begin, I would like to remind you that you have 10 minutes for your presentation, and I will be the timekeeper, so I will be showing you a sign when you have 3 minutes left, and so you're aware of the time. And also, I would like to inform all the participants that today's webinar will end with a Q&A session, but I would encourage everyone to send your questions by using the chat box throughout all the sessions, so we can have a group of questions and we can address them to the different speakers in the webinar. Thank you, Enrico. Welcome.
Thank you, Salome. I hope you can hear me and you can also see my presentation. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, again, a pleasure to be here. A pleasure to see and to hear all the names that are familiar. I'm also very happy to see new names, not yet new faces because we can't see each other yet. But again, very happy that we are all together here and we started this training. Just a short presentation to tell you why, I mean, at the end, why we thought about doing this, what are the reasons. We developed this training initiative, and what are the specific objectives of this training, and also a little bit of more additional information on how it will develop during the, today and for the next 4 events. Just to bring everybody on the same page. I think many of you know that the SDG monitoring framework was the result of a very intense consultative process. There were many steps. The only thing, and they are summarized here, the element that I would like to draw your attention on is that all the indicators, all the first the targets and all then the SDG indicators were a decision of a process that was led by countries. At the end, it was, for example, in relation to the indicators, it was the Statistical Commission, where, I mean, and a body where all countries of the world are represented, who adopted the framework, the monitoring framework for SDGs. The UN entities are, if you want, they are called custodians of this framework, this monitoring framework. In our case, as UNODC, we are custodians of 16 of these SDG indicators under different goals and mostly under goal 16. So, briefly, what is the role of us as a UN entities entrusted with this task of custodians? Is to produce the data for SDG monitoring, international monitoring, which is always based on national data that are produced at country level. Develop methodological standards, and we have been working quite a lot on this. All UN entities provide technical assistance, as we are doing now, and produce analytical products on the SDG monitoring, on the SDG progress. As for example, the inputs for the UN Secretary General annual report on SDGs. These are the targets we will focus on during this initiative, this training initiative. We have 7 targets within goal 16. There are a few other targets, but they are not under UNODC or UNDP competence. So that these 7 targets, mainly the area of violence, trafficking, access to justice, illicit trafficking, corruption, effective institutions, and inclusive decision making. And then you can see here on the right also the indicators. We are talking about 14 indicators. And here you can see how we share between us and the UNDP the responsibility, also the pleasure to be custodian, or sometimes together with other entities, other organizations, of these indicators. So the blue ones are under UNDC, the rose, pink ones under UNDP, and again, some you see are also together between us and UNDP. Sorry, UNDP. I just also wanted to draw your attention that what we are doing here under 2030 agenda and the SDG16 is very closely linked to the monitoring framework of Agenda 2063. For example, in the case of SDG16, so all the topics related to peace, governance, access to justice, effective institutions, and so on, the matching between the Agenda 2030 and the Agenda 2063 is very close, around 90%. The targets are the same. So we hope that the work we are going to do during these weeks will be beneficial, not only, of course, for SDG16 monitoring, but also for your work to monitor progress towards Agenda 2063. Yeah, this is the framework. Yeah, where we are. Where do we start from? Let's go. Just one piece of information, or what is the situation about SDG data availability? Sorry, SDG16 data availability in Africa. This is based on the data that are available at international level. Basically, data that are available in the UN, in the global SDG indicators database. And you can see that we have put here the percentage of countries for which there is at least one figure available, African countries, for 3 different time periods: 2010, 12, 2013, 15, and then 2016, 18. And you can see that the percentage of countries in Africa for whom there is at least one figure available in these different periods is always quite low. There are a few exceptions, like, for example, in the case of human trafficking, or in the case of bribery among businesses, or also in the case of data on prisoners and sentenced prisoners. Often this better data coverage is also related to some really dedicated international programs. The poor data availability is often due to a combination of factors. In some cases, simply the data are not produced. This often applies to, for example, survey data. But also there are many cases where data exists in the countries but are not shared nationally. Yeah, there are some institutions that have the data, but for any reason they don't go beyond that institution. Or also data exists at the level of the country, but then they are not reported at the international level. Also, for example, for issue of communication that is not always, or transmission that is not always very effective. So if this is the starting point, we try to, with this training, during the course of this training, to address at least these 2 issues: how to strengthen the technical capacities of all a range of data producers in the country, but also to how to strengthen the organizational framework, to how to develop a more data community among a range of data producers at country level, and also at international, regional level. So here we are reporting only to give you a flavor of, you see on the left, the map of countries for which there is at least one registered participant. And here on the right, for this training, on the right is what you indicated as the most relevant topics where you would need to know more about methodologies of measurement. Corruption is the one that is received more attention. The last two slides just to tell you a bit more about this training. There will be which will be mostly formed. There will be two main training elements. There will be this live training webinar series, 5 of them. The first, this today, more kind of cross-cutting issues. Then the other 4 will be devoted to specific topics and, of course, specific indicators. You will see we try to put as much to improve, to make these sessions as interactive as possible. We have already started with the polling questions. Then there will be also in-between activities, between the sessions. Between each session, there will be a communication based on a communication platform, Sdg16 Hub. There will be, we will give you exercises or propose questions, and you are really encouraged to take active part in these activities. So this is how this training program will develop over the next 4-5 weeks. Okay, in the last slides, just to remind you that we'll be happy to, of course, deliver also a certificate for the completion of this training seminar to all those who participated in all these online webinars, those who also were involved in our interactive activities like responding to the questions that we will ask, or completing some online exercises that again we will make available on the platform. So I will stop here. I hope I respected the time, and I really again happy to be here with you. The entire team is happy to be here with you. We are happy to assist you in all possible ways. And of course, there are all these presentations you will also find in both in the Data Hub and on UNODC website. Thank you again.
Thank you, Enrico. Yeah, you did very well with the time, 10 minutes sharp. Now we move on to the second question, and I'll give the floor to Roberto. Please, Roberto, go ahead.
Thank you very much. All right, now for the second question. Remember, guys, that these are timed questions, so it is important for you to submit your responses as soon as possible. In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge associated with producing data on SDG16 indicators in your country? Option A, a lack of coordination among national ministries or entities. Option B, technical capacity and/or inadequate data recording systems. Option C, discrepancies between international and national monitoring requirements. Option D, methodological guidance from international agencies. And option E, lack of funding. Please select just one answer, and if any of you has any troubles seeing the complete sentences, it might be due to the configuration of your screen. If you find that problem, just hover your mouse over each option, and then you'll see the complete sentences, the sentences in full. It's important for us to see your responses. There are no correct or incorrect answers. I can see many of them apply to my country at least, and I think it'll be interesting to see how they apply to yours. All right, have you submitted your responses? There we are. All right, so this is interesting. Many of you said that the technical capacities and/or inadequate data recording systems are one of the main issues regarding the production of data on SDG16 indicators. That is really insightful of yours. I think that is really an issue that we should address. Thank you very much for participating, and I'll see you in the next polling question.
Thank you, Roberto. Now we move on to the second presentation about UNODC methodological tools and data collection efforts. And this presentation will be delivered by Sarika Dewan, and she works with us as a consultant in UNODC in data development and dissemination section. Please, Sarika, remember that you have only 10 minutes, and I'll be aware of your time. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Salome, and it's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to present to you today the UNODC cross-cutting SDG methodological tools and data collection. I only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and get through as much of the interesting tools that we have as possible. Now, on the screen at the bottom, you see a range of the methodological tools that we will be discussing over the course of the next 5 weeks. In this presentation, however, I'm only going to discuss 3 of these. Firstly, the International Classification of Crimes for Statistical Purposes. Secondly, the Manual on Victimization Surveys, which both support countries in producing SDG16 indicators. And thirdly, the UN Crime Trend Survey, which is the annual data collection to collect SDG indicators to measure progress and report for international reporting to the UN Statistical Division. So, in many countries around the world, there are no crime classifications, and crime data is often based on the legal codes or the criminal codes that the country has in place. And now this really creates problems from an analytical perspective, and it means that we have a lot of inconsistencies between data sources, between national institutions, and also between countries. This is where the International Classification for Crimes for Statistical Purposes comes in. The ICCS was officially endorsed by the UN Statistical Commission and the UN Commission in 2015. And it is the very first international standard and provides a comprehensive framework to measure and analyze crime. It does this by grouping crimes in a systematic way and providing a definitional framework to increase the data quality and also comparability. How does the ICCS does this? So basically, the unit of classification in the ICCS is in fact the behavior that constitutes an offense. So the categories in the ICCS are based on behavioral descriptions of the act and not on the legal codes or the legal provisions in a country, which means that the ICCS is applicable to all national institutions and all countries. The ICCS doesn't only provide a framework for classifying and defining offenses, but it also provides very important attributes on disaggregating variables, which provide important contextual information, let's say, on victims, on perpetrators, and events. Now, this information is extremely important for evidence-based policy making. Now, let's look at an example of the ICCS on the right-hand side of the screen. Intentional homicide in the ICCS is defined as unlawful death inflicted upon a person with the intent to cause death or serious injury. Offences in a national criminal code may include murder, killing, infanticide, or serious assault leading to death. But irrespective of the criminal code in a country, all of these categories would be matched to category 0101 intentional homicide in the ICCS, and it means that we would have high quality and comparable data. So how does all of this relate to the SDG indicators? Now, the ICCS provides very important definitions for several of the SDG indicators. For example, indicator 16.1.1, to measure the target 16.1 to reduce all forms of violence, we need reliable data on the statistical indicator on the victims of intentional homicide. We can only produce reliable data if we can define intentional homicide according to the ICCS. The Global 2030 Agenda also calls on countries to collect detailed information on multiple dimensions, let's say, on age, on sex, on geographical location, on disability status, amongst others. And again, the disaggregating variables in ICCS can provide this important contextual information of crimes to make sure that no one is left behind. So ICCS implementation, as some of you may know, is a challenge. It's a long process, but it comes with many, many, many benefits. And several countries have embarked on this journey since 2015, and we're very pleased that we will have a presentation from Kenya on the ICCS following this presentation. And if implemented by all national institutions in a country, data can be consistent. And there's also a way to measure the flow of incidences, crime instances throughout the criminal justice system. So secondly, the Manual on Victimization Surveys. There are 3 things that we need to take into consideration when interpreting statistics. Number 1, the proportion of crime that is reported. Number 2, the way the crime is defined and classified. And number 3, the way the crime is recorded and counted. Now, the ICCS addresses the last 2 of these issues. What about the first one on the proportion of crime that is reported? This is where the manual on victimization surveys comes into play. Victimization surveys are sample surveys of a relevant population that help to measure levels and trends in crime, fear of crime and perceptions of safety, the impact of crime on society and on high risk or vulnerable groups, and also access to the criminal justice system and trust in criminal justice actors. Sample surveys are an extremely important method to actually discover the dark figure of crime or the hidden figure of crime, which is not able to be captured through national administrative data. SDG indicators that are sourced from victimization surveys include, for example, physical, sexual, or psychological violence, perceptions of public safety, bribery associated with public officials, and, for example, physical or sexual harassment, which is part of the 16+ indicators. Now, these social constructs can only be captured through sample surveys or victimization surveys, and these victimization surveys need to be conducted in a sound and reliable manner so that these figures can actually be determined. The point to make here is that there are many ways to conduct sample surveys. Some are bad and some are good. And in order to conduct sample surveys in a reliable manner, it's very important to follow the instructions that the Manual on Victimization Surveys provides to countries, because it provides guidance from start to finish of a sample survey. Thirdly, the UN Crime Trend Survey. So how does all of the data on SDG indicators actually get collected to measure progress towards the SDG targets and implement the Global 2030 Agenda? The UN Crime Trend Survey is the worldwide annual data collection questionnaire sent to UN member states. It started in 1977, and we have collected 19 data collection waves. So the network now includes around 130 national focal points, and data can be accessed. There is a new data portal over data.unodc.un.org. So how does this massive instrument of a global annual data collection on crime actually work? UNODC communicates with the permanent missions to UNODC, who in turn communicate to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in respective countries. Now together, they appoint a national technical focal point who plays an extremely important role in collecting the SDG16 indicators and data for the Crime Trend Survey, as this technical national focal point coordinates and collates all of the data from the police, prosecution, courts, prisons, and national statistical offices. Again, this is an extremely important role as it provides an important coordination mechanism throughout all of the national institutions in a country. So what's exciting about the CTS in recent years is that in 2017, the Crime Trend Survey underwent a major revision to meet 3 main objectives. Firstly, the ICCS was made fully compliant with the ICCS, the definitions, the concepts, and the principles. Secondly, to meet all of the SDG information needs related to the incidence of crime and the prevalence. This CTS now includes 8 SDG indicators. And thirdly, to respond to new and emerging forms of crime, the CTS now collects data on, for example, cyber-related crime and firearms trafficking and forms of sexual harassment. On the right-hand side, we see the data coverage from 2016 to 2018 of the CTS, and unfortunately, some gaps, several gaps in Africa and in parts of Asia, but this is why we are here today. We have a Center of Excellence on Crime and Criminal Justice in Mexico for the Latin American region and a Center of Excellence for the Asia Pacific region in South Korea. So what are the advantages of the CTS at country level and the importance of it? Number 1, it improves coordination among national institutions. Number 2, it is really a way to harmonize definitions, concepts, and data processes, for example, by implementing through the ICCS and using the ICCS compliant definitions in the CTS. And number 3, it broadens data dissemination and data use for policy making. Now, finally, my final slide. I know it looks very complicated, but I would just like to wrap up everything that I've said into one slide. If you see here on the left-hand side, these are the data sources that SDG indicators in the area of crime and violence are sourced from. On the one hand, administrative data, and on the second hand, victimization survey data. Now, the ICCS and the Manual on Victimization Surveys are very important tools to produce data for these SDG indicators, and we really encourage you to pick up these tools, to really engage with them and to try and conduct victimization surveys, for example, at national level, to produce the SDG indicators sourced from these types of sample surveys. And finally, as I said at the beginning, these SDG indicators are reported to the UN Crime Trend Survey, which are in turn provided to the UN Statistical Division to measure progress in international reporting. Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat. And for further information, please visit the website below. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarika. We have shared the link to the ICCS, and we will share other relevant links, but we will also share the presentations. Someone asked for these, but I understand that we will share them through email, but we will also upload them in different websites, right? Can you please confirm, Sarika, in which websites, or maybe post the links in the chat box?
Yes, absolutely. So the Sdg16 Hub is our communication platform where all the training materials will be provided, and all of the methodological tools that we will discuss in this session can be accessed over that hub.
Okay, great, Sarika. Thank you very much. Now we move on to the third polling question. Please, Roberto, go ahead.
Thank you very much. All right. Now, for our next question, we're going to have a bit more of a time. We're going to have 2 minutes in total to answer the question because it's a bit longer. And this one has to do with the establishment of a center of excellence. So you see right now that the question has been uploaded, and the question is as follows. Let's imagine that we join forces and manage to establish a center of excellence on crime and justice statistics in Africa in 2021. Which of the following areas of technical assistance would you focus on? Option A, improve national processes and coordination to produce crime and criminal justice statistics. Option B, increase awareness of the ICCS and provide technical assistance for implementation of the ICCS. Option C, build capacities to conduct surveys on crime victimization, corruption, access to justice, and other topics of SDG16 according to international standards. Option D, strengthen national capacities to analyze and disseminate SDG indicators for monitoring relevant peace, justice, and governance SDG targets. And option E, produce analytical reports on SDG16 topics, for example, crime, violence, corruption, illegal trafficking, access to justice, etc., at the regional level. Which one would you pick? Please select just one option. I think the time has passed, so we'll see how many of you responded. And it seems like 70% of the participants thinks it's relevant to focus the attention of the Center of Excellence in Africa to strengthen national capacities to analyze and disseminate SDG indicators for monitoring relevant peace, justice, and governance SDG targets. However, it's also quite interesting to see that we had a varied array of responses. Some of you thought that option A was the most relevant. Some of you thought option C was the most relevant. For instance, I think, or I would concur with many of you in thinking that option D would be really interesting for the Center of Excellence to focus on in Africa. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next polling session.
Thank you, Roberto. We still have one more question to answer after these two coming presentations. So now I would like to welcome Mr. Robert Buluma. He's the Manager of Governance, Peace and Security Statistics at the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, and he will be talking about their experience in implementing the ICCS, the International Crime Classification for Statistical Purposes, in Kenya. So welcome, Mr. Buluma. It's good to see you again. It's been a while since the last time we saw you here in Mexico sharing your experience. So it would be very interesting to see your progress. You have 7 minutes, and I will show you a small sign when you have 3 minutes left. Thank you.
Thank you, Salome. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. It is a pleasure for us to participate in this workshop. I would just want to share with you a few comments about what happened in Kenya. So I will start with the ICCS pilot and implementation in Africa. As most of you are aware, as it has already been said, ICCS was endorsed in 2015, and Kenya and Uganda were selected to participate in the pilot, which was initiated in 2016. The partnership between the UNODC and the KBS was formalized in June 2017. So we had to negotiate with the UNODC to chart the way forward on what is expected to be done. Next. Harika, next. So ICCS implementation in Kenya is a collaboration of the entire crime and criminal justice system and other stakeholders. We collaborate, this collaboration is achieved through the membership of Governance, Peace and Security Statistics Technical Working Group. As most of you are aware, in Kenya, we have a technical working group which brings together various stakeholders in the issues of governance, peace and security. The technical working group is mainly charged with the coordination of the issues to do with governance, peace and security statistics, data production, and dissemination. This committee works very hard every year to ensure that we produce a chapter on governance, peace and security in line with the economic survey, which is a publication of the government, and also in the statistical abstract. Sarika, next. So we have several people who participated in the implementation of this particular activity. We had a national police service. We also have the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. We have the Ethics and Corruption Commission. We have Judiciary. We have Kenya Prison Service, Department of Probation and Aftercare Service, Kenya Institute of Public Policy, Research and Analysis, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Ministry of Devolution, Transparency International, University of Nairobi, where we have the Institute of Development Studies, and UNODC. So we brought together all these teams in our first meeting to deliberate on the way forward and what is expected of us. Erika, next. So we took several activities during the implementation of this activity. In short, we had the first activity, which was on assessment of crime and criminal justice statistics, which was held in June 2017. And then this was followed by a national multi-stakeholder workshop on administrative data on crime and criminal justice. This activity was held in the same year of 2017, that is in December, and was attended by around 33 participants. After that, we had a national workshop on the implementation of the International Classification of Crimes for Statistical Purposes, which was done in May 2018, and this was attended by 24 participants. Next, sorry. So during the assessment, which was conducted by UNODC, this focused mainly on institutional framework, organizational arrangements in various institutions, the standard procedures that we normally use to collect data, technical skills available among the officers in the various ministries, departments, and agencies. Then we also looked at resource availability and the quality of data processes for the production of crime and criminal justice system statistics in Kenya. Next. So during the national multi-stakeholder workshop on administrative data on crime and criminal justice, the workshop was organized to just draft a roadmap for the implementation. So we have to look for a roadmap for the implementation of this activity. After that particular workshop, the roadmap was finalized and approved by Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Then we had to view the correspondence tables in the following workshop. So this meant that we had to match the data, the requirements by Iccs and the national criminal law, and also this was done in 4 levels using the 11 Iccs categories. Next. So during building correspondence tables, this involved the process of matching national crime categories into the Iccs, and it was done in 3 steps. The first step was learning about Iccs and the national laws, and the second was initiating correspondence mapping, while the final, and then we did the final review, which we are still trying to improve on. Next. So what are the next steps? While we are still thinking of what to do next in terms of improving the activities to do with the mapping, this pandemic, the well-known COVID-19 pandemic brought our activities down to a halt. So from there, we have not done much. We also need to perhaps, when the situation goes down, to continue the process of matching so that we complete the entire matching process. Then we were also to have a workshop for chief executive officers of the various organizations that are included in this particular activity, so that we also take them through the process and let them understand the Iccs process. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Robert. And now we move on to our following presenter. I would like to welcome Ms. Mariana Neves. She is the Governance and Statistics Specialist at the UNDP Oslo Governance Center, and she will be presenting on the UNDP methodological tools and data collection efforts regarding SDGs. Welcome, Mariana.
Hello, everyone. Now you can hear me and hopefully you can see me as well. So I'll be speaking on our methodological tools. It is so great to be here. I'm very sad that I cannot see your faces, but at least I can see your names and your hellos in the chat. So I will speak on UNDP side. Okay, so UNDP is custodian for 5 indicators. Well, actually there are 4, but there's one that divides them because they are quite different. It counts as 5 indicators. Here, what I should say is that we are new on this global monitoring, but that does not mean that we lack experience. And the experience we have is a lot because of several institutions, several NSOs present in this discussion. You have contributed immensely, and I can say, for instance, in satisfaction public services, in testing 1671B, 1671C, and if I go even further back from that, we worked, UNDP, we worked with several of you on surveys, on experimenting, going towards a more stable methodology. Hello, Isaac. So I'm saying this to say that we are new on one side, new in the sense that these 5 that you see in front of you, their methodology is new, but we are not new in the sense that in governance, if you see it in a broader sense, we've been working with it for some time. So, and the only thing that we are actually new is System 3 that is 1 year old. Actually, not even 1 year old, but it's already taking very fast steps. So, in the indicators we are custodians, we have 3 indicators that are survey based. We have access to dispute resolution mechanism. Enrico very gently gave us a pink on his presentation, so there is the, but all the indicators, it's blue for UNODC and pink for UNDP. Later on, I'll ask him why pink for us. So we have these 3, they're survey based, and we went through the metadata approval, and after that, we needed more. It was not sufficient, but at the same time that we needed more, the other co-custodians as well for the Sdg16 also needed more experience. So in that sense, 3 agencies joined forces. This is the High Commission for Human Rights, UNODC and UNDP, because they believe that we needed to cover the broader group of thematic in the Sdg16. So UNDP could not continue focusing only on his and the High Commission on his and UNODC on his. We can and we do, but for the survey, for the solution presented, and here I'm now speaking on behalf of the 3, is on behalf of the initiative, not one single agency. So they join the forces. We know we have all of the strengths, each in terms of capacity, the knowledge. And here again, there was a lot of contribution by several of you in this webinar. So we develop, we have violence, we have corruption, we have discrimination, governance, access to justice, that it's a joint effort between UNDP, UNODC, and OECD, and human trafficking as well.
Okay, so I'll continue here. So from this very interesting group of indicators or of modules, we have these 2 under the other UNDP. But we've been working in all of them together. So it has been a great experience that we wish to continue with you. Sarika? Next. Okay, so as I was saying, what is, in our view, what is special about this? It is one single operation if you want to do it as one. Enrico was showing that we have data gaps, and sometimes these data gaps is just because a lot of conflict in methodology. I think it's important to say. It incorporates these several international standards, not only the international standards on each part, but also the international standard that come across, the international standard on survey, on data disaggregation. So besides, although this follow, that does not mean it's not flexible. So it allows that you add, confirm there are optional parts that it can be added depending on the relevance for the country or not. And it has another very important point. I think it's going through throughout a very deep testing of the methodologies, because we had the several agencies with you had tested several parts of it. But when we put it all together, we don't want to create a Frankenstein. So we have to harmonize them and make them and make it one single. So it has been tested and tested and tested, and it has received a lot of contributions from experts outside our normal scope, from academia, from civil society, a lot. It does not mean it will be a very a low cost experience. That will not know yet, but it's a service, so a service is also a little bit costly. Next, please, Sarika. Okay, so that's on the survey initiative. On the other side of the indicators, the UNDP is a custodian agency. We have to their administrative records. So they are not on the initiative before. Here we're talking one, it is a lot of work with the public administration. So there was a lot of contribution from civil society organizations that are collecting data in developing it, but it was further refined. And on C, it is on courts, and it complements some indicators that are with UNODC. So it is on the judicial, more on the human resources side, and in the conclusive representation in the judiciary. Next, please. Okay, so at this moment, the same way the survey is tested, they are being tested for the indicators. For the other modules, they're already very well established. Victimization survey, it's a very well established survey. For this part, it was tested in several parts of the world. Some countries were so gentle they even tested 2 indicators. And with that, it was further improved, and it was concluded, the refinement was concluded for this. And what we're going through now is building a reporting platform. So Sarika just before me was speaking about the UN-CTS. So it's like a sister or brother, if you prefer, from UN-CTS, but for the indicators that are the governance indicators. Next, Sarika, please. So this one part is data in the data aggregation. We have all of this. So this is, but we have all of this information from the indicators itself. That's the first part. But has also been a lot of investment on the data segregation. As you all know, the agenda has been requesting, both Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2063 have been requesting to leave no one behind, to see the vulnerable population, or they can also not be vulnerable, we don't know. We have to produce the statistic to see. So there has been a lot of investment on creating more knowledge on this part. Sarika, please. So this is the data reporting platform. And what I wanted, Sarika was mentioning in her presentation, their data flow. So it is the same, it's more or less the same. The difference, or what's here is, in one side, we have all data producers, an internal data producer, directing their data to the NSO. So the NSO is the only data provided recognized in the system. So, but taking into account that in some countries it's not the NSO, but it is the National Statistical System that is the coordinator. So from then, the platform that was created, they send the data and the metadata. If available, we would love you to send it, because the more information we have on the different methodologies we create, the better we can improve it. And also the better we can see where it is needed to produce even more. And inside of this platform, there's another side, is that all modeling that is done, you can see it and approve it before officially reported to the UNSD. Next, please. So it's like this, it's very simple. I'll show you only this image. It should have 45 indicators at this moment, only for the concluded one, which is the administrative records. It has a direct access. A few just very fast. Salome, how bad am I in terms of time? You cannot count the technical problem.
No, I know. You still have like 2 minutes left.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the good thing, there were some features that it has. One, you can put all your data, but you can view it, or for instance, in some cases, the NSO has several validating, priorities. So there's one person that puts data, another validates, another does the last validation. So it allows this. We know that some NSOs as well, they will prefer to do it on paper. So it allows to download the information and you can fill it before send it to us. That's a second important feature. A third feature is it provides you with some additional information, because some indicators are a little bit tricky to calculate. So it provides you with this information if you need. And if that information is not enough, it also directs you to us. So you can always, through the platform, ask for any type of assistance. Some will be answered directly. Some will have to find another way of responding to it. And then you validate. Next, please. So this is what it looks like. It does not look like exactly like this because it's being reviewed. But what you see has both sides I was saying. One is metadata, which means how are you producing? And the other side, the data, which means what exactly was produced. So this is more or less what it is. At this moment, it does not, when you see the indicators, it does not have the survey indicators, but in March, hopefully, March, April already has those two. Next, please. And before I finish, what I wanted to say is that, okay, we have the survey, we have the data reporting platform, we also have a long, in this case, UNDP, a long history in supporting initiatives. So supporting, for instance, the PRIA group as one of the members of the steering committee, that will be wonderfully presented by my colleague Malen, a colleague from the same country. And also other initiatives, surveys, studies, etc. But I think what we should also really emphasize, and this is something that comes out also in the survey, and this is written in our agenda. All countries and all stakeholders act in collaborative partnership. What this means for us, and we take this very at heart, is that the continuity, this training, all activities we'll do next, all the activities at country level, at regional level, at global level, all of it will depend a lot of a great partnership between us, on a really a collaborative effort between all of us, NSOs, Ministries of Justice, UNDP country offices, or country offices in general, UNODC, UNDP, all of us. So for us to continue to share, to learn, and next please, Sarika. And one of the places to do this is the Sdg16 Hub. And you saw Asim already offer his help if you need. That will assemble, with your help, all information that can be relevant. And when I say relevant, I'm not saying just relevant, the guidelines, UNODC guidelines or UNDP guidelines, but also you can all share your tools, any type of tools, your questionnaires, your manuals, your report, anything that you think that the community, this governance, crime and criminal justice statistical community can use and can be relevant. So thank you so much. And I'm Mariana, and I'm here if you need me, and I'm sorry for the technical problem.
Thank you very much, Mariana. You did a great comeback after that little bump there. Now we move on to the fourth and final polling question. Please, Roberto, go ahead.
Thanks a lot. All right. Just a quick reminder, if you cannot see the poll questions, just click on the three-dot button right on the bottom right corner of your screen, and there you'll see the polling option once the question has been uploaded. So in a few seconds, you'll see there that there's an option that says polls, in case you don't see them already. All right, you should see them now. And the final polling question is, if your aim is to strengthen the network and community among data producers across Africa, which communication and coordination mechanism would you select? Option A, convene annual regional conferences on crime and criminal justice and the monitoring of SDGs. Option B, create an online forum for discussion. Option C, provide regular regional or sub-regional webinar trainings on different topics, such as this one. Option D, publish a periodic newsletter with information on ongoing activities. And option E, facilitate exchange of good practices and statistics among national statistical agencies, line ministries, judicial institutions, and other relevant institutions. Now, what's interesting about this question is that you can select answers. So feel free to choose the two that you feel are most suited for this question and click the submit button once you have selected them. And there we are. All right, this is really interesting. It seems like 51% of you thought that it would be better to facilitate exchange of good practices and statistics among the national statistical agencies, line ministries, judicial institutions, and other institutions. That is one that I would have picked. That is actually one that I thought was really, really relevant. And the second most voted one was option C with option A, sorry, with 39%. Option A would be to convene annual regional conferences on crime and criminal justice and the monitoring of SDGs. That is also something that UNODC, UNDP, and the Centers of Excellence are focused on doing. And I think that these are really, really interesting answers. Thank you very much for your time. And I'll see you later on the next sessions with more polling questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. Now we have two more presentations to go, and we will see if we have time for questions, but it seems unlikely. So we move on to Ms. Malena Almeida. She's the coordinator of the Praia Group Secretariat, and she's from Cape Verde. And she will be talking about the Praia City Group and the Handbook on Governance Statistics, which was recently published. So welcome, Malem. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Salome. Of the Praia City Group on Governance Statistics, but first I have to share my screen with you. Okay. I'm going to talk about the Praia City Group on Governance Statistics. It is the first African city group, and it was established in 2015 by the United Nations Statistical Commission and has as its mandate to contribute to establishing international standards and methods for the compilation of statistics on the major dimensions of governance. The group developed during its first mandate a handbook on governance statistics for the National Statistical Office, covering the conceptualization, measurement, methodology, and dissemination of governance statistics. The Praia Group is running its second 5-year period from 2020 to 2025. The main objectives of the group is to provide a forum for national and international organizations, groups, and civil society organizations to share and develop expertise in governance statistics, to facilitate awareness among the full Praia membership of national in the area of governance statistics, to activities and products through relevant channels, including the group's website. To disseminate the use of Handbook on Governance Statistics, including by supporting capacity building and training, to undertake every 2 years a broader-based consultation to review whether necessary to update the handbook, to supplement the handbook with the development of methodological and practical guidelines for the improved gathering and compilation of governance statistics at all levels, including covering issues of concept definition, data sources, and the harmonization of governance indicators, and drawing on international agreed governance and human rights standards. And the last objective, to document sound practice and provide inputs to the development of indicators supporting the measurement of its pledges that no one should be left behind, and that the 2030 agenda should under international law. Now, the handbook was in March 2020, and it was supported and endorsed by the United Nations. The handbook takes stock of existing practice in governance data collection and provides guidelines for the production, and compilation of governance, peace, security, human rights, and rule of law indicators. It outlines existing standards, emerging good practice, and provides guidance on how to measure many aspects of SDG 16 based on 8 dimensions: non-discrimination and equality, participation, openness, access. The handbook is divided into parts. We have that refers to cross-cutting issues applicable to all of the 8 dimensions of governance, and you have part B that describes the dimensions that I mentioned before. For example, including regard to conceptualization of the dimension, this practice that currently exists, recommended key indicators. Here we have including SDG 16 indicators.
Malen,
And suggest,
sorry to interrupt you. I think your signal is a bit weak, so maybe perhaps you can try to switch off your camera so we don't lose your audio.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to switch my camera.
It should be on the bottom.
Okay, okay, fine.
There you go.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay. As in part A, the cross-cutting issues. Here I present some of the main topics that are addressed. I'm just going to tell some of analyzing and disseminating governance statistics, importance of data production at country level and through national statistical systems, importance of data disaggregation, and so on. In cross-cutting issues as well, we discuss the human rights as well, a cross-cutting normative framework for governance statistics, where was discussed why do human rights matter for the development of governance statistics, and an international human rights normative framework, human rights-based approach to data. Here you can see the 8 dimensions of governance that are described on the handbook. We have a brief summary of what each dimension focuses on the handbook. I'm not going to, but just for example, for absence of corruption, focuses on the levels of intolerance to corruption, levels and patterns to observe corrupt practice, and the state response to corruption. Now, here with the SDG indicators, with the 8 dimensions that we have on our handbook. All the dimensions have and you can see the yes. I'm going to talk about COVID-19 era, a prior city group guidance in September 2020 as a spin-off of our handbook on governance statistics. And it will help data producers to meet governance data requirements during the pandemic and other multidimensional crises that may arise in the future, and to provide practical measurement advice which is sensitive to current operational constraints. It also aims to help data users, such as policymakers, civil society, or media, explore what governance data is. Thematic brief, the same dimension as the book has. And here you can see what is discussed in each thematic brief. First, we discuss what data might be needed. what data sources already exist, when generating new data, what guidance should be applied. Here you have links to assess each of the two products that the group has. Thank you for your attention, and please join the prior group if you are not yet a member of the prior group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malen. Thank you for turning off your camera. I think it helped a little bit, but we were losing you every now and then. I think Aparna shared the link to the prior handbook on governance statistics is available in the chat box for everyone to see it. And now we move on to the last presentation by Ms. Dorcas Nabukawasi Halango, Senior Statistician from the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. Please welcome, and you have 7 minutes. I will let you know when you have 3 minutes left. Please go ahead.
Hello, Chair. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is once again Dorcas Halango from Uganda Bureau of Statistics. I'm here to share with you the outcome from the data gap analysis report on the SDG16 indicators. I'll request that off my video so I can be able to present effectively. Next. In terms of the overview of the study, we relate to the SDGs as a global acceptable framework for monitoring development, of course, across the globe. And as we already know, the 17 goals, which we are all expected to provide data on, 169 targets with 232 indicators. But as Uganda, we are supposed to respond to 201 indicators to which we are eligible. The exercise mainly focused on 16. Already know, focuses on peaceful and inclusive societies, providing access to justice for all, and building effective and accountable institutions at all levels. That goal 16 has 23 or 24 indicators if you add the plus. Those in tier 1, we have 6. Tier 2, we have 16. And in tier 3, we have 1. Next is next. In terms of Q, slide below. In terms of the process, we conduct reviews, compare the situation analysis at the country level to establish the different studies that a lot of data mining was done, and by this we're looking at previous studies where information on SDG16 had been collected. We did a lot of consultations with all stakeholders in the national statistical system, which included the civil society agencies, the different ministries, departments, and agencies that are in the crime and criminal justice, development partners. And I must thank the UNDP for supporting this exercise, and specifically the International Security Development Center that took close collaboration with us to ensure that this work is done well. And for the consultations, we mainly focused on the data producers and users within the national statistical system. The data producers include, among others, the institutions in the crime and criminal justice. That includes the police, the prisons, the judiciary, the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, among others, including the academia. And when you come to the users, of course, the policymakers, the researchers, the general citizens, and every other person who is involved in the use of SDG 16 indicators. Next. Our main objective was to ascertain gaps in reporting on SDG 16 in order to facilitate readiness for mainstreaming in the national and subnational development plans. It will be great to learn that Uganda, we are currently implementing our development plan 3, and issues of SDG 16 are under the governance and security program. We have shifted from the sector approach and now going to implement the program approach. Next. Methodology, how was the study done, especially when it came to rating of the different indicators? We had a scoring system based on 4 assessment criterion, and the first one was data availability. We mainly focused on, is the data available on the indicator? If not, we scored otherwise. The second criteria was the disaggregation compatibility, and here we're looking at how is the indicator disaggregated, to do with age, sex, regional representation, the disability aspects, income, employment, and every other parameter that you can think about, because we are looking at leaving no one behind. The next criterion was the compliance with the definitions and metadata. And for this, of course, we must accept that SDGs provide a global framework, but at country level, how best have we been able to domesticate the indicators to meet our current needs? Then the last criterion was timeliness, whether the data is being disseminated in time as recommended. Of course, real-time data is what every user requires. Next, please. Next. Key highlights from the study, we see that 66% of the respondents were satisfied with the local government services, was in 2015, and our birth registration has increased from 30% in 2011 to 32% in 2016, the demographic health survey, and then 60% of respondents felt safe walking alone at night in 2020. That was from a survey. Next, please. Next. Still going to key highlights, we note that 70% of detected victims of trafficking were female. Sources, these we mainly focus. Yes. Okay, I was proceeding with the highlights from the report, and I was saying 70% of detected victims of trafficking in persons were female, which was a not so good finding, but anyhow, this is part of the data. About 5% of women and 1% of men aged 18 to 29 reported having experienced sexual violence, as you can see in the picture. The number of victims for intentional homicide was 11.5 per 100,000 of the population. This is coming from administrative data, which is produced by the Uganda Police Force. Next. In terms of the data sources, I was saying I listed a number to which to all these surveys collected some data on the SDG16 indicators, and we started with the National Crime Victims Survey, which was conducted in 2017, but we are yet to determine when we can have it again. The National Governance, Peace and Security Survey, we have had 2 in a row, and we hope come next financial year, we could have another go in preparation to report on the SDG agenda. The Uganda Demographic and Health Survey, we are currently undertaking preparations where we got information on birth registrations. National Service Delivery focuses on issues of participation and service delivery within the different ministries, departments, and agencies, including the general community and citizens. Our national survey is also ending. Data has been going on, data collection, but we are ending soon. So these are the survey data sources, but we realized that the SDG16 indicators can be fed by 2 sources, of course, the survey data and then the administrative data. Next, please. In terms of the recommendations, advocacy and awareness creation on the SDG16 indicators was coming out strongly. Inclusion of the SDG16 indicators in the governance and security program for the NDP3, thus localization, was also key. Developing metadata for SDG16 was also important, and I must report that as a country, we've been able to translate the SDG16 indicators into local languages, which is part of building on the metadata. Prioritizing production of key data, especially in Tier 2, as already indicated, we are supposed to provide indicators on the 23 for SDG16, and specifically, the study found out that 21 of the 23 in terms of the recommendations, develop administrative data systems in ministries, departments, and agencies and local governments to support production of SDG indicators, and conduct regular prerequisite surveys and initiate other surveys where necessary. I indicated that as a country, we need, for us to have data on violence against journalists, I think we will need a specialized survey for that. Coordinate data producers for SDG16 in line with the governance and security program in the National Development Plan 3. I must report that we plan to have a training where we are focusing on data producers within the sector, of course, building on some of the recommendations that came out through the report. And then lastly, we note that there is need to embrace the information communication technologies in the production of the indicators. Some of our institutions were found to be still using analog methods, paper and pen. We are yet to appreciate the automation, but we are encouraging that for us to better produce data on SDG16, it would be prudent that the institutions embrace the use of the IT infrastructure. Next, please. I think that is the end. I want to thank you all for listening to me, and sorry for the hiccups. Thank you, and back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nabukawasi. And thank you very much for all the participants. I think we ran out of time, and I would like to give the floor to Sarika because she's just closing the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Salome. Thank you very much. Just a few seconds at the very end. Please don't forget to register yourself on the Sdg16 Hub. This is where all the training materials, the exercises, and the discussion points will be uploaded each week. We welcome your feedback of the training session. Thank you for your patience with all of the technical issues that we had, but we're doing our best to improve those next time. On the next screen, you will see some polling questions for your feedback if you still have a few minutes. Thank you very much and see you next week.